Good afternoon. This is Dr. Saul Goldstein. The opinions expressed by these two, fellows, colored folks, may or may not be the opinions of their employers or mine. Holla at me.
Top, they want top, they love top, they want top, they love top.
If I speak, I am in big trouble. In big trouble. And I don't want to be in big trouble.
Ken, 2022 is closing out on us quickly, man. How you feeling about the year so far?
It's been a good year. Overall, I think it's been interesting on a lot of levels too.
What you mean interesting?
I mean, like coming into 2022, like at the end of 2021, I think there were a lot of things that people were expecting to pan out in certain ways that didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of gets to our topic that we're discussing right now.
Yeah. So, U.S. Women's National Team, man, their ratings are down, way down. Uh, I don't know really how to feel about this because national teams go in cycles anyway. But what are your thoughts on this? Is this just par for the course, or is there something else at play here?
Um, I think there is a underlying issue here that is both like a canary in the coal mine for WOSO in general
Mm-hmm.
and just an overall problem with soccer in America. And
Okay.
the first problem I think it is that like just with WOSO in general is that like a lot of these games, like when they aren't a part of large like coverage packages,
Mm-hmm.
don't really like get good like placement, right? So like the big thing the big thing I think between 2022 and 2021 is that like there were 5 games that weren't like included in this
Mm-hmm.
because they were on like CBS Sports Network. And
Okay.
that like Nielsen doesn't even like Nielsen TV ratings don't even track that.
Okay.
So those are
Why?
zeros
Why though?
because it's just not like a rated television station. It's not on broadcast. It's like CBS is like fourth or fifth station.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Like, and that's the problem with NWSL and I think WOSO in general. Like, that should be kind of like a learning lesson for this, especially if you're trying to like get numbers for ratings, right? To like adequately, like, I guess, to adequately sell your product.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've got to get on places that, you know, are at least being rated by Nielsen so you get proper valuation.
Gotcha.
And like the NWSL, like their home channel is CBS Sports Network,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you're not watching it on Paramount Plus. And it's like how many televisions in across the country get like CBS Sports Network. And then that just kind of transitioned into my secondary point, which I think is like, you know, the broader like, you know, problem for soccer in general in our country a lot of times, especially with the new MLS deal, is that like we're just not getting good placements and choosing streaming over broadcast isn't really helping.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, both national teams starting next year are going to be on HBO, right?
Yeah,
That's going to be a problem.
for sure.
So, like, those are really my only two things that, like, I think are kind of like problems here. But all in all, I mean, you know, like next year is going to be the Women's World Cup. So,
Yeah.
like, obviously ratings are going to be back up. But, you know, like, what do you do in those off brand years when you don't have like a World Cup and you just have like the She Believes Cup and a bunch of friendlies, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like a part of it is, and this is just personal feeling. I just think with the release of that documentary, there was like just not great energy around the team this year. And on top of that, and I think the biggest factor is that men's World Cup was all the talk. So when all the marketing dollars are behind the men's team and whatever run they were projected to make in this World Cup, it takes away from eyes on the women's game. So I just think those two things made this little downturn in ratings, and they'll pick it back up next year. Especially like you said, World Cup. They're the queens of the World Cup for women, so I expect those numbers will get a seriously significant boost in 2023. So I don't think this is too big a deal. It's kind of like whatever for me, but it's always something to keep an eye on, especially with these new CBAs that they have, because now the way the money's being split, it's like everybody's watching all these fine details now, and it could come back to bite them in the long term. So we'll see what happens.
Do you think that there's still that level of like market competition between the men's and the women's teams when it comes to like eyeballs, right? Like, do you think that, like, when people talk about the men's team, like it takes away from the women's team in that way still? Like, do you think we'll ever get past that?
No, that's that's men. That's sports. It's not ideal. It's not perfect, but that just is what it is. The men are going to continually draw more revenue than the women, I think. Not that they're better, not that they deserve any different. I'm just saying these things are just, they just are. And that's just gonna, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. There's not really much we can do about it as a fan base other than support the women, right? Just support them. Watch the games, tell your friends about it, try to get them to watch. But outside of that, that's still a minor impact. The biggest change is going to come from all the people with the dollars in the first place, and that's more advertising, more opportunities. Um, we've talked about this many times before about how you take the conversation away from it being some sort of like charitable effort and just being an outright sporting effort, the same as the men, and play to their strengths, um, minimize their weaknesses, the same as you do for the men. And that's all we can do. Outside of that, it's just going to be what it is. Thank you for checking out Chop Soccer Pod Short Corners. For more, check us out on Twitter @Chop Soccer Pod and Instagram @Chop Soccer Pod. You know the vibes.